The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to the most recent installation of Webinar Wednesday. My name is Jamison Reynolds and I'm the Director of Marketing Strategy with the Library Corporation. Today's session is going to be LibrarySolution and Syndetics Unbound. Before we get started and before I bring in our panelists for this webinar, I do want to cover one key thing that will be pretty important with this webinar. As many of you know, the Library Corporation does offer two library management solutions when it comes to library management software. We have CarlX and we have Library.Solution. This session is going to focus specifically on how Library.Solution and the newest version of Library.Solution will be utilizing Syndetics Unbound and what those benefits can bring to Library.Solution customers. We will be doing a subsequent session in the future for Carl users and Syndetics Unbound, but this session is specifically for Library.Solution and Syndetics. On this session, we will have Doug McMillan, who is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships with ProQuest, and Sarah Simmons, who is one of the product managers for Library.Solution and is based out of our HQ office in Inwood, West Virginia. At this point, I'd like to bring in Doug. Doug, thank you for joining us, and please take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to switch straight to cover the agenda, just to give you a little outline of what we're going to go through here. I'm actually based in London, as you can probably tell by my accent, so afternoon my time, but good morning everyone, thanks for joining. So there's two parts to the agenda. The first part, which I'm running, is just a sort of brief overview. We don't have too long, it's only 10-15 minutes. I really want to clarify the difference between Syndetics and Syndetics Unbound so that everybody's clear exactly what we're talking about here. I want to talk a little bit about the data sources of the enriched content, because I think that's important to know, because there are two primary sources and they're very different. And a little bit on the key benefits and value proposition. And in part two, Sarah will take over and demo the cool integration that TLC have spent some time doing with the Unbound service. So just to kick off, Bowker has been part of ProQuest for some time now, and we have been aggregating data from publishers, and it's not full content, it's bibliographic and metadata. And we've been doing that for a long time. We run the ISBN agency, and we have a huge repository of information about books and ebooks and audiobooks that we've amassed over the course of the year. We license additional content from review sources, we create content internally, etc., etc. And that's our core business. And it's from this repository of data, which we call the professional data that we've sourced directly from publishers, that we've created the Syndetics Classic. You can call it, I call it original Syndetics or classic Syndetics. And it's really the market leader in opaque enrichment. We have thousands of libraries worldwide using the service, including hundreds of TLC and Carl, who have been a very important customer for us in this partnership over the years. The data is really rich, it's extensive, it's accurate, and I think many of you know Syndetics Classic. The elements on the side here are the primary ones that would be in the TLC packages that you're probably very familiar with. So things like images, tailored content, summaries. I refer to these as sort of display elements. Okay, so you find the record, and I've got a few screen grabs here. So at the moment, if you look at a current library, you do a search, get the search results, click on a title, you get the bibliographic data, and on the left here, there are some links through to the enriched content. So here, you've got a link to journals, to reviews, book lists, library journal, a link to the summary, a link to awards, and other information that you might have in your subscription to the Syndetics Classic content. So this content is important because the classic content is important because it provides rich, enhanced data within the catalog. It's not just a basic record, it's a kind of beautification of the catalog. It helps students double check that they found the right title they're looking for, determines book selection, and really helps create a nice visual discovery experience. And the Syndetics Classic is very similar to Content Cafe. I just thought I'd put that out there. So I talk a little bit about that and novelists towards the end, but that's a different conversation. This is really about helping you understand the main differences in data source and in service between classic Syndetics and Unbound. So that's the classic service. What we wanted to do was we banged our heads together and we're like, well, how can we make a good classic service that many libraries rely on? How can we move it into the next generation of it as a product and service? And we did a lot of research and we came up with some real drivers. One was that we wanted it to be more dynamic. We wanted to create a more engaging experience with patrons and students. We wanted to try and help and encourage exploration of all the resources in the library. At the moment, the display content, you see it, the classic Syndetics, it enriches it, it's valuable, but it doesn't encourage patrons to go further in the catalog and find other resources. And ultimately, that's what we tried to do with this. And of course, the ultimate goal is to help drive circulation and usage, but also help surface resources that otherwise might not be found. And by that, I mean, some more remote titles that patrons wouldn't think about looking for. We can help surface these with some of our dynamic elements. And obviously create a modern and stylish interactive user experience, and that's what Sarah's going to talk more about. So that's what Syndetics Unbound, that's what the goals were in creating this next generation product. So it's the rich authoritative content that we use to power classic Syndetics. And then we partnered with a company called LibraryThing. And many of you will be familiar with LibraryThing. They've been around for 10, 15 years, and we've worked with them exclusively all that time. It's a community of about 2.5 million book lovers, and they catalog their books and they create content around those books. And over the years, those members have created a real wealth of data. You can see here on the left under vital statistics that there are about 2.5 million members, 145 million books have been cataloged by those members, 162 million tags created, 3.8 million reviews created, and the list goes on. So think of this LibraryThing community creating this wealth of content and sharing it, and it's really sourcing big data to create content. And what LibraryThing have done some time back is create their own enhanced content package using things like the tags and the similar books and the user reviews. And they operated separately. I mean, we were responsible for that line of business as well, but effectively they were two different platforms. And we banged our heads together and we said, well, hang on a minute, we've got really good professional content and we've got high quality vetted recommendations, tags and reviews from people passionate about books. So let's get this, combine it and put it onto one integrated platform. And that's effectively what we've done to create Syndetics Unbound. So I've just got a few key takeaways here. The first one is that although the LibraryThing content is sourced from big data and there are algorithms in there that we use to extract content, it's all vetted and reviewed. We have library staff at LibraryThing that go in and will review and vet and curate all the user reviews created and strip out ones that aren't appropriate. So that's an important point to make about the LibraryThing content. Obviously, the professional Syndetics content is all sourced from publishers. So I talked about that. That's the classic Syndetics data. With Syndetics Unbound, in terms of content, you get all of what you get in classic Syndetics, plus all of this. Okay, so you're going to see recommendations, and I'll talk briefly about all of these in a second. I haven't got too much time. So recommendations, or you may also like, reader reviews, all vetted, tags, series, also available as all the formats, awards that go really deep because it's not just the main awards, it's very local awards because they're coming from that community, video music and video games. I won't talk about book display widget because that's actually not happening on this service. So just the next 5 minutes, I just want to run through some of those elements just to give you a flavor. The first cool thing with Syndetics Unbound is that it includes a premium cover service. That means where a book or a title or a resource does not have an image, we create one. It's just a flat color, and various colors are chosen randomly, but it gives the format and the title and the author. and it just makes it, you know, I can't think of the word. It doesn't, therefore, in the catalog, you don't get blank cover images. Okay, so there's always going to be something there. So there's a premium cover service. I'm not going to focus on the summaries and things like that from Syndetics and Classic, because they're I think you're familiar with them. About the author, Unbound is pulling in author images that are provided by the community, and you've got here all the titles by this author. Now, a really important point, a distinctive point to make about Unbound, is that the content that we're returning in the service is only for books that are in the library's collection. Okay, so these books here by this author are only books in this particular library by that author. We don't show them all because, you know, we only want to show what's in the library. The whole idea is to help drive circulation, so we don't want to send people off somewhere else. With that said, the only one where we will put a book in, if the library does not have it in its collection, is the series, because we felt that was important to have that right chronology. If the library doesn't have a book in that series, it's grayed out and set back a bit. We have a look inside feature. I'm not going to focus too much on that. Topics. This one I would just like to say something about. These are the recommendations, okay? And the distinction here with our recommendations is they go really deep, because there are so many connections made from that big data, from that book-loving community and LibraryThing, that we're able to make obviously the most obvious recommendations, but also we can go really deep and make connections between books and resources that, as I said earlier, help surface books that otherwise people might not think of or find. And so there's lots of different ways that you can search for similar titles. So top picks, similar authors, same genre. There's all sorts of ways that you can get recommendations. And the whole driving force behind that is to say, okay, you found the book that you want. Now look at all these other books that are in the library and go and try and find some of those and find your next read and take it out. So takeaway number 2, just to reiterate that point, it uses the library's holdings to return recommendations, tags, and series. So it's only returning information for titles in that collection. So we have the professional reviews, over 5.4 million, all included in Unbound. We have reader reviews, and I've mentioned these already. These are about 2 million. Actually, if you saw the LibraryThing site, there are nearly 4 million, but we've curated them and stripped out 2 million that we don't think are good enough quality to go into a library's catalog. So this is important. Reader reviews are curated and vetted. Unlike something like Goodreads, there's no curation at all. We link out to them. You're just going to get whatever's on there. So we feel it's important that our content is curated, and it's curated by librarians. Tags, and again, I mentioned that there were 160 million tags. This is just a really cool way to go in and not via LC subject, but use a tag, go in and search for what you might be interested in using your own tag, clairvoyance, or whatever it might be. And when you open the lightbox, you can go in and combine all sorts of different tags and genres to find books that you might like. Again, it's just another way to go in and explore and discover. We have all the books that we display, all the books, all formats of the book that we display. So if you can't find a paperback, you might not know that there's also an audio book that you could take out. And as I mentioned, we have awards that go really deep. You've got all the big ones, but you've got a lot of local ones that the LibraryThing community have provided. So the third takeaway, I mentioned this before, Syndetics Classic, the display Syndetics is similar to Content Cafe if we have Content Cafe. But in terms of novelists, Syndetics Unbound does what Novelist does for the main part, but it also includes Syndetics. So you only need one subscription to Syndetics Unbound. Okay, that's another important point. You've got all the recommendations and the series, and you've got all the professional content from Syndetics all in one place. So just in summary, I think I'm just not too bad on time. So just a summary slide, you know, Syndetics Unbound is great. It helps guide users. It helps them evaluate stuff. It creates pathways for discovery and exploration. Ultimately, we hope it's going to help with circulation, and it provides great context and consistency across systems. So We're having a lot of success and interest with it, with different providers and different libraries. We've got lots of examples. We're starting out here with TLC, so I think this is going to be really exciting, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing the integration that Sarah's going now to go through with yours. So sorry if that was rushed. Feel free to send any questions towards, we can address them at the end or afterwards. And thank you all very much for your time and for listening.
Okay, at this point, we're going to bring in Sarah Simmons. Sarah is a product manager with the Library Corporation, and she focuses on Library.Solution and Library.Solution for schools. So Sarah, if you will.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you, Jameson, for that introduction, and thank you, Doug, for that great high-level overview of the difference between Syndetics Classic and Syndetics Unbound. What I'll be focusing on during my portion of this webinar, as Doug alluded to, is I'll be focusing more on how we took Syndetics Unbound and integrated it into Library.Solution in our upcoming 5.6 release. Before I get into the software, though, I want to give you a little bit of background on why we did what we did, because that's at times that's just as important as what we actually did. So why we did what we did with our Library.Solution Syndetics Unbound integration in version 5.6 can be summed up with a few guiding principles. We believe that you, the library staff, regardless of whether you're in a school, an academic, or a public library, value accurate and up-to-date content that enables your borrowers to make informed decisions about the library resources they wish to use. We think libraries should have access to the most up-to-date content and the broadest coverage possible of that content. We also believe enhanced content should enable libraries to accurately market and highlight their resources via LS2PAC, websites, and social media, providing a richer experience overall then for all library users. And lastly, we believe that when content is inaccurate, you should be able to immediately report those inaccuracies to the content provider in order to expedite the content correction process. Now, you might be saying, Sarah, this is all well and good. These ideas are all well and good, but we also then needed to execute on these. And we did. Put simply, what you'll be seeing here over the next few minutes, how we turned these ideas from statements into reality, is what we feel makes our implementation of Syndetics Unbound the best. A couple high-level concepts to keep in mind, again, before we get into the software. The content itself is being displayed directly through Syndetics Unbound API. What this means is that it's, there's no middleman, and there's an increased probability of more and better content being able to be displayed, as well as fewer content-related support issues being generated. Something I wanted to note during Doug's presentation, something you'll be very aware of as we get into displaying how we implemented Syndetics Unbound in our ILS, is we implemented the content utilizing what's called a split div. Now, for those of you who aren't versed in coding, a div is simply used to define a part of a much larger overall piece of an HTML document. I mention this because it's a core feature of how we implemented. You may have noted on the screen that Doug was showing at the end the different pieces of content and how they were all on one page. We decided to implement Syndetics Unbound as a split div in order to be able to place individual content components in LS2PAC in the online catalog where it was applicable based upon borrower searching and navigation experiences. We feel that this split div concept, this idea of being able to take pieces of content and place them in specific areas, we feel strongly that this optimizes the content experience for you and for your borrowers. Now, given that we've taken an approach where both you and your borrowers can utilize the content where it makes sense, this injects value into each of your usages. Let's go ahead and take a look then at how we have implemented and how we are displaying this content so you can see for yourself how this approach is manifested. Now, what you're seeing on my screen right now is a landing page for LS2PAC. I will note this is a development server, so some things may not be as fully fleshed out as your normal library pack. That's all right. We're not actually going to start here, though. This is where you might think logically we're going to go into, because this is where enhanced content has always lived. But what I want to do instead is I want to switch gears, and I want to come into LS2 cataloging. Because remember what I said earlier, we believe that when content is inaccurate, you should have the ability to report these inaccuracies. Well, we need a place to do that. We need a place for you as library staff to review the content before it even gets posted into the online catalog environment, into LS2PAC. So let me go ahead into Martian Chronicles. We'll go ahead and bring that up. And you'll notice there's an enhanced content tab now for those, for those of you who've used LS2 cataloging, you'll know this is new. And if I go ahead into enhanced content, you're going to see we have integrated aspects of Syndetics Unbound enhanced content into LS2 cataloging in order for you to review it before you actually post, before you publish this record into your catalog. That way, if there are issues, you are knowing them first, and you are able to use this link right up top, report incorrect or missing content. That's right. From LS2 cataloging, you can now report any errors you see in terms of the content provided. So you'd simply indicate what's incorrect or missing for that matter, put any identifying notes to help the Syndetics Unbound team better identify what may be incorrect or missing. And then you can even put in an email address for reply. It's as easy as that. You can then submit it, and as noted at the bottom, ProQuest will be notified with this request. It will open a ticket in their system, and they will be able to proceed from there. So not only does what we're doing in LS2 cataloging provide transparency by allowing the cataloger, allowing a staff stakeholder to review the content associated with a title before that record gets published, we're also helping to ensure accuracy. By allowing the cataloger to submit feedback directly to Syndetics, to ProQuest, if content is found to be incorrect or missing, we remove the middleman. We make it so that it is direct contact, and so that these inaccuracies or missing content can be corrected more quickly as a result. So again, just taking a quick look through, Doug mentioned a lot of this info, and we'll see some of this in LS2PAC as well. But I wanted to start here with what the staff workflow is, what your staff, your catalogers are going to be seeing, and how they're able then to interact if there's incorrect or missing information. We're really excited about this. This is new. This has been warmly received with the libraries we've spoken to about this, that have seen this. So we're really excited to get to roll this out. Switching gears a little then, let's go back into PAC. And while the launch page carousel was kind of moving through, something you likely noticed, Doug had mentioned it before, how what we used to call dummy jackets, or placeholder book jackets, where if the title didn't have a book jacket associated with it, in the past it was a gray book jacket that just had text on it. But you never would have been able to see it here on the front page, and it didn't look nearly as nice as these do now. Granted, it's not the book jacket itself, but it allows us to use this placeholder to actually display the title here on the main screen. And it gives a little bit more character to those titles as opposed to that plain gray with white text that we saw previously. So a couple things that I want to note here in LS2 cataloging then. We're going to go back to Martian Chronicles. We use that in cataloging, so I want to use that again here. go. And we'll bring that title up. So, I noted how we split these pieces of content into different areas. First and foremost is the summary. You'll notice that's up at the top. It's in the same place as it's been in before, but it's now, again, being directly brought in through that Syndetics Unbound API. Under reviews, we have editorial reviews now. And again, not a whole lot has changed, but they are definitely a lot nicer, looking in terms of knowing who they're from, how it's laid out. Under related, another way to consider this related section is as an on-the-spot reader's advisory right inside your catalog. And this draws, as Doug alluded to, this draws from LibraryThing members and from big data algorithms, as with the other enrichments, just to reinforce what Doug was saying. Syndetics Unbound only recommends items that your library owns. At the same time, though, that's a lot of recommendations, not just in terms of titles themselves, but in terms also of similar authors. You can expand out, see more recommendations, and you can proceed by being able to select, let's say, Isaac Asimov. And you're able to see more about Asimov himself and his works. You can click through. You can really get yourself down quite a rabbit hole, a rather fun rabbit hole, just by using tools like You May Also Like. In addition, also available as tags, resources for college libraries, RCL core titles is in here, altmetrics badges are in here. There's a lot of data in here about the title in terms of other things that may interest you if this particular title is what you're looking for. A lot of great information here under the related area. And last but not least, we have this more info area, and where that related area is that on-the-spot reader's advisory. More info provides the borrower with the right content to decide whether the library resource really does align with their reading needs and interests. So again, the summary is in here as well. We saw that before, but maybe maybe it's useful to go ahead and see that in conjunction then with the look inside and the book profile. There's a lot of really great information in here that allows the borrower to make a determination. Is this the book that I want? If it is, what else is there? And maybe even if it's not, what do I want instead? In talking though about books, one thing, both as a reader myself, but also as a movie watcher and as a video game player, that I also don't want you to leave without seeing is the fact that it is not just books where content is provided, and especially not just fiction. So I've got a video game in here, and this video game also has content relating to it being brought over through Syndetics Unbound, even including screenshots. So it's not just necessarily your readers who will get value from this. It's borrowers who take out AV material as well. Another title I have in here, let me see if I can find that. There we go. One of my favorite movies. If you are a film or audio buff, you also have the ability to enjoy related information, Syndetics information being brought in. You also have the ability to see more about that work. I absolutely love these functions because it breaks out of the mold that a lot of us tend to get into of content being only maybe for physical, physical paper material, when there are a lot of borrowers who focus on AV as well. So, just wanted to make sure you saw that as well. I'm going to go ahead and pass things then back to Jameson. I think I've gone over my time a little bit, but thank you very much. As Doug noted, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. We are happy to provide you with answers.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. now is the time for us to start answering some of the questions and feedback that has come in. And this is also a chance for while we're answering questions that have already come in or comments that have already come in. If there are any questions that you have not yet asked, now would be a great time for you to start keying those in, and we will start going through those. And I will go ahead and kind of word the questions out. I'll read out loud what we got, and then our panelists can jump in if there's an answer appropriate for them to get into. And as we are doing that, I can tell you that one of the first questions we got when this was going through was, what does this cost? What is the cost of the new version of Syndetics Unbound in LibrarySolution for those that are already Syndetics customers with LS, and what will this cost them? There's going to be a couple of different facets to this answer. They're not complex by any means, but there are different tiers and levels. If you have never been a Syndetics customer and you would like to add this into your LS version moving forward with 5.6 and beyond, I highly would recommend that you contact our sales team and they will be able to give you the pricing information if you've never had that. The same would go for if you are a Syndetics customer with LS, but you're only using book jackets. So if you've never used Syndetics or you're only using book jackets, you're going to want to contact us to be able to get that appropriate price. Now, moving forward, if you are a current Syndetics customer, you're already using that information and you plan on upgrading to 5.6 and using the classic tier of content, that will be no additional charge for you. So if you're moving over into the classic tier, there would be no additional charge. There are additional features and functionalities that would be found with the, I should say features and content that would be found with the premium version of Syndetics Unbound, and that would be available to you at a 25% increase on what you are currently paying. So if you need more additional information or some clarity, please contact Valencia in our sales office, and she would be more than happy to get that information to you. Now, we do have a question that came in addition to that. What if we have summaries in our MARC records that are in Spanish, which may be different than the provided summary? Sarah, would you like to answer that question?
Absolutely. And Jameson, would you mind giving me back a presentation for a moment? I'd like to actually show something.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, that is a great question. And I want to go ahead and use a title we actually have here on our screen. Give me 1 second. There we go. So you can see that this title is in Spanish. This is not an English language title. I want to scroll down a bit before I talk about the summary up top, because the question specifically asks about the summary that is found in the MARC record. So I do want to make clear that the summary that's displayed via the content that Syndetics Unbound is providing, that is actually separate from what's in the MARC record. I'm going to highlight here a portion of the information in this title details. This is actually coming from the MARC record. So if you do have a Spanish language, or for that matter, a summary in the MARC record in any other language, and you do have that displaying currently in LS2PAC, we are not removing that from display. That will continue to display for you. But something else I wanted to note that's really kind of cool, you'll also notice that the Syndetics Unbound provided summary, there's an English summary, and there's also a Spanish summary. So going a little bit further from the original question, to answer the original question, we will not be removing, we don't touch that MARC data. So if you are displaying a Spanish language or other language summary, and that summary is encoded in the MARC record for the title, that will still display so long as you've got it displaying already in PAC. If you don't know how to display those in PAC, feel free to contact support. They can help you with that. But in addition, I did want to note the fact that there is a dual language review going on here also.
All right, thanks a lot, Sarah.
Sure thing.
We also did get a question that came in. I'm actually, what's interesting is I'm trying to parse between the questions and the comments that are coming in regarding the platitudes and the compliments on it, which are all well and good. And we do appreciate that feedback. I totally do. I want to make sure we're answering the questions though. Under what circumstances does it post information about materials not in the library? I'm not sure I understand what that exactly means. Sarah, do you know what that means? Under what circumstances does it post information about materials? Okay, go ahead, Doug.
I was going to say, Doug's probably a better respondent on
so
this one.
I alluded to that earlier, but I did talk quickly and in a short period of time. But Syndetics Classic enriches records in the library. Okay, that's a no-brainer. But making the connections and the dynamic content is only going to do that with the holdings data. All of the dynamic elements are going to be using the holdings data. The only exception is the series. If the library doesn't have a book in the series, we still show it, but it's grayed out and set back a bit, so you know it's not in the library. There'll be a hover over it as well. So that's really the only one that isn't using the holdings from the dynamic content.
Excellent, because there was a follow-up question as well, Doug, that said, does it do it for series for DVD movies as well as books? So it sounds like you just answered that question as well. Sarah, this is a question that I'm sure you're going to love answering. The question is, when do we expect to be launching 5.6?
So there is not a specific date yet, but we are currently in what's called wrap and release, which is where we, where we take a look, we compile all the code, we make sure that everything is where it needs to be, we make sure that everything is working as expected. I do believe that we are close to identifying and contacting potential early adopter candidates as well. So while I don't have a definite date for this, at the same time, this is very much more near-term horizon than far off. I can certainly say that. I would definitely say keep an eye on the community site for more information as we get closer to a stated release date.
Yes, and I'm sure Sarah was very happy to be able to say that we are hitting the wrap phase and looking for EA phase. So we're very close on having this out to everyone as an availability. In addition to that, are fields in enhanced data searchable in the OPAC, specifically thinking of awards that the library hasn't indexed?
I don't believe at this time that is the case. At this point, we are more just displaying that content as opposed to consuming it, so to speak. But that is something we can certainly keep in mind for potential future development.
Okay. Is this integration for library.solution only? The way that we have done the development for library.solutions usage of Syndetics Unbound was what we highlighted in today's webinar. There will be a future webinar conducted for those that would like to see how Carl X utilizes Syndetics Unbound. So I did want to go ahead and answer that question. Just to clarify, the advanced Syndetics would cost each library an additional 25% on our existing bill. So again, if you are utilizing Unbound, if you are utilizing Syndetics now, and you move to 5.6 and continue to use the classic level, the classic tier, there will be no additional charge. If you do upgrade to the premium tier, there will be a 25% increase on what you are currently paying for Syndetics content. And if you need more additional information or clarification on that, we would be more than happy to talk to you about that in our sales office. I would just recommend contacting Valencia, and she'll be able to get you that information. I do believe I have identified and answered all of the questions that have come in at this point. And I say I mean we, the panelists. Sure I haven't missed anything. Oh, we had one more that just came in, and Sarah, this is going to be, I believe, for you. How would data we have entered already be transferred into Unbound? For example, notes and series.
So I believe this question is talking more about data that's been entered in the MARC record. And the important thing to keep in mind here is this is data that is being keyed off of standard number. So this is data where a match is being made on the Syndetics Unbound side and data is being displayed as a result. So it is not necessarily tapping into your MARC data. You would still be able to see the notes you have put in for that title in the MARC record, the series information you have put in there, but this is separate from that. This is information this is content that's coming in, again, just based off of that match, based off of the match to the title itself. So it's not necessarily something where you would be transferring data into Unbound, but your data would still be present in the MARC record and displaying in PAC if you have those fields set to display.
Okay, and I believe this is going to be a toss-up between, potentially a toss-up between Sarah and Doug. How does Unbound affect the info we get from Novelist? I believe that shows series as well.
You want me to take this, Sarah?
Go ahead, Doug. I think you'll probably be saying about the same thing.
So I referred to this before, but we have classic Syndetics and now we have Unbound. And Unbound does a lot of the dynamic stuff, the recommendations, the series, the different things that are available under a separate subscription from Novelist. If you have a subscription to Novelist, that will open up access to the content on Novelist. Unbound doesn't go into Novelist in any way. They're separate services. But I think the point that I made earlier is if you have a subscription to Syndetics Unbound, you've got it all in one place. If you have Novelist, you also need either Syndetics or Content Cafe for the display enrichments. And there are some other subtle differences, and that's an evaluation that I think each library has to make. But we've certainly got really nice, tight, clean integration with our service within LS, or the TLC, sorry.
Okay. I believe this might be the last question, and I may have missed this, and I'm not sure the origin or the context of this question, but I will say the question is Syndetics Unbound going to do a better job of including images for large print?
I guess that's me. Well, I hope so. I mean, we add 5 or 6 million records a year to the repository of content that I referred. We're constantly looking at improving the data. I mean, the majority of the images come direct from the publishers. If they supply the images, then we make them available to customers. If they don't, we don't have them, and we don't go around scraping to try and find them elsewhere. We do license in some images from different organizations to make sure we plug as many gaps as possible, and we have a team that goes out and that analyzes the gaps in the data and then goes out and reaches back out to publishers to try and get them to send it. So we do try and gather as much content as we can. I will take that point though on large print and take it to the team and make sure we've just got all the publishers providers of large print information.
Okay, and we did get another question that came in. Is it possible to turn off display of, for example, reviews, but display other Syndetic Unbound fields?
In terms of the implementation in library.solution, there are the two levels. There's the core and the premium level. They do have set content types that are turned on for that. So it is not necessarily an a la carte, but each level has different, the core level has its own set. The premium includes core, but also includes other things. So I think to answer your question, that would be unlikely.
And just to be clear, Sarah, with your answer, when we're talking about classic versus premium, in the previous versions of library.solution 5.5 and before, there was not a tier structure or the ability to a la carte, like you said before. So the idea that we have tiers is a new addition and improvement with 5.6, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Folks, I would like to thank everyone for having attended today's webinar. The questions at the end were completely robust and very valuable, and we do appreciate the feedback that we got from everybody. Also, I will say, if you did key in any kind of comment, I don't want you to think that we ignored your feedback. Your feedback was greatly held. We just wanted to make sure that we focused on the questions that were coming in, because we do typically try to keep these webinars at about a half hour. Maybe a little bit longer, and we did go over, which I'm sure everybody was fine with because of the questions that were coming in. But we do appreciate the feedback that we did get from everyone. Thank you all for attending. Next week's session will be conducted by our customer success manager, Melissa Powell. She'll be talking about some curbside programs and reopening the library and some policies that I'm sure are going to be topics of interest to everyone. I highly recommend you checking out that webinar. You can catch that off of our website, tlcdelivers.com, and the webinars page on there. But again, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Doug, for joining us from over the pond for this session, and Sarah for being much closer than Doug is. But we do appreciate both of you. We do appreciate you both being on this session. Thank you, everyone. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and continue to wash your hands. Thank you very much, and have a great day.